How's everything going over there?
It's going great, man. I'm kind of I'm so busy that I'm having a hard time catching up with myself.
Yeah,
Which is
where
a
in the
good
world are
thing.
you?
I'm in New York City. I live in Manhattan. That's where I pretty much
Yeah.
grew up.
Yeah, greatest city in the world. Well,
I think so. I haven't left yet.
yeah. Well, well, we saw how you grew up, and then that was pretty crazy. It's got to be kind of nuts to watch this with an audience and just see them go, "Oh my gosh," and these are just it's just your life, right?
It is a little strange. I don't think most people get to see their life flash before their eyes until they're like dying. So like
Yeah.
there is sort of a sense of rebirth in this in a way because I know that that's my life, that's what I've experienced, but now I feel like I almost have a new beginning. Like, there's so
Mhm.
much going on now and I've really come through a lot and I've landed in an amazing place. My life is really great now and
Yeah.
I don't even, the there's so much good stuff going on. I really feel a sense of rebirth. I'm just
Yeah.
going with it, man.
Yeah, and it's got to be exciting too for other people who probably worried about you a good chunk of your life to see it happen
Yeah,
too as well, right?
sure. Yeah, that and I'm sure it's also disappointing to a lot of people who wanted to see me fail. but but you know what? I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here. My kids are doing well, and one just graduated college. One works with me a lot, travels with me when he can, and I'm married to an amazing woman and I'm living a good life. And if you would have told me that any of this was ever possible, I would have laughed in your face. And, I'm really just, I'm grateful, and I remember that. I try to always remember that even on, bad days, I'm still grateful because I know it's just a bad day. They come and they go. Life is pretty damn great.
Yeah, sure is. But that's the thing. A lot of people go through a lot of things, but it's hard to change, right? And it's hard
Yeah.
to get on that right path. And so, what was that moment when you finally just realized? And we'll see a little bit in there, but where you're just kind of like, things have to get better, and you have to stay better, right?
Well, you know what? I don't know if it's any one thing. But,
Hmm.
you have to really there comes a time when you have to look in the mirror and recognize who you are and where you've been wrong and, ownership, and, I don't believe in giving up, because, it's just not in me. If I could have given up, I probably would have many times, but there's something in me that just fights for survival, and, I know that had I given up when things were bad, I wouldn't be where I am now. And that's what I
Hmm.
always try to tell people when they're going through really difficult times in their lives. Like, if you give up when things are at their worst, once that's behind you, there's nothing that can stop you. Like
Yeah.
seriously, it's like once that's in your rear view mirror, like, whether you're going through, financial problems or a divorce or you're separated from your kids, there's so many things that we almost all go through, never mind health issues and you know people turning against you. There's so many things that we go through in life that seem like the end of the world, especially for young people who don't have enough hindsight yet to realize that this is just a blip, you know and if you can survive past that, you really can do amazing things that you didn't even dream of. And you just don't even know what will come your way, what person or what series of events or what one thing that could happen that could just change everything.
Yeah.
And if you give up, you're never going to get there. And you know what? I can be pessimistic about it too and say, that could also not happen. But you know what? You won't know if you give up. And you know what? We know we're going to die. So why not stick it out anyway? Like why rush to get there, even if things just suck, even if things are
Mhm.
horrible. Like guess what? It could change, and then all that time, I'm just really grateful that I fought through the things that I did and that I'm here. You know, I mean, I'm still an idiot to a degree. I'm, whatever. I'm still loving life, having fun, and making a fool of myself. But
Yeah.
I'm full of gratitude.
Hey,
You know?
that's the way to do it. That's so cool. Well, the survival is just part of it, just like music is. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't imagine not playing music, right?
I think that was a great part of my survival is that I had that release valve, and not just a release valve. It became my survival because it actually fed me, housed me, gave me couches to sleep on when I was just a cool musician that wasn't making any money. I was like, oh yeah, CRO-MAGS. It always gave me, even when I was in the stimulators, it gave me status as a kid in a world of
Mhm.
adults.
Yeah.
And so although I, have come from extreme, extreme everything. I mean, poverty, you name it. Hitchhiking all over the world with my mother as a baby was insane and dangerous. Just living her crazy hippie lifestyle, and then getting into the whole. I was always part of the underground, always part of the subculture of what was happening, and it's been a really interesting journey. And again, I would have never have dreamed. People always used to tell me, you really need to write a book. And
Yeah.
and when I was at my worst, I started writing one. When I was really bottoming out, when I was like doing massive amounts of drugs and just like really trying to die, because I knew if I did die, somebody else would write something about me, and it wouldn't be true, and it would be some other serving some other purpose. Probably, they'd be trying to tell whatever story they were trying to tell. So I was like, I started writing a book. It was, and the fact that that happened, it was nuts, and that came out, and then people always used to say you should have a movie. Wow, I have a movie. What the hell? Like, it's
Here you
crazy,
are.
dude. It's crazy. I couldn't have dreamed this. You know,
Hmm.
my wife believed this would happen from get go, and I'm like, yeah, I'm laughing. You know,
Yeah.
who the
But
hell?
yeah, and here
You
you are.
know, yeah, man. Here
That's
I
so
am
cool.
talking to you about this. What the hell?
Yeah. That's I love it. It's amazing. Well, and I think people will find a lot of inspiration out of that too, because there are a lot of people that come from chaos, probably not nearly as much, but they think it
Hey,
is.
man, it's all
And
relative, bro. It's all relative. I mean,
yeah.
I've had a lot of people tell me after seeing this film that they could really relate to things in the story, whether it's,
Mhm.
like I said, man, we all go through hell, whether it's, divorce or abuse or, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been, gone through sexual abuse and violence and all kinds of stuff. I did, and I talk about all this in the movie. And people came to me and they're like, "Oh, so I couldn't believe how vulnerable you let yourself be and this and that in the film." And I'm like, talking about it doesn't make you vulnerable. That makes you strong. It's when you hold
Mhm.
it in and you aren't able to process it and you just rage out on the world and punish yourself and live in a state of depression. That's when you become vulnerable because you're not actually looking in the mirror and trying to heal, you know.
Mhm.
And if not for yourself, for the people that you care about, because who wants to be just like a depressed or angry or self-centered human when there are people that matter to you. You may not even
Mhm.
realize how difficult you are to deal with. I didn't even understand that I was really like a rageaholic for a lot of my life because that was just my way of fighting through life. When you're
Mhm.
a teenager and you're living in burnt out buildings with like other runaways and homeless people and criminals and drug addicts and this and that, like if you're not, I don't want to say if you're not aggressive, you're going to be food for the beast. But yeah, especially if you're like a little dude. And I grew up in a real type of environment, a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, a lot of criminals, a lot of dangerous people, a lot of predators. And you hit a wall where you're just like, I'm not the one. And then that's when you can really become dangerous. And that's what happened to me. and you get so accustomed to this whole fight or flight way of living that I didn't even realize I had PTSD until like combat veterans friends of mine that I train with in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu. They were like, yeah, no, you got PTSD, bro, you need to see a shrink, man. And I literally got a therapist from one of my boys who's a Marine, that I train with.
Mm.
He's a fellow black belt, a brother of mine. And God bless these guys for helping me get to a place where I was able to see where I was, and that I actually needed
Mm.
therapy just to get the tools in order to help myself get through life. Because really, that's all it is. Excuse me. You know, we like to think that we can figure out this stuff out, but it's kind of like, you know, if you're a white belt, you can't teach yourself jujitsu. You need to learn from somebody who knows.
Yeah.
Two white belts sitting there trying to teach each other doesn't help much either. You need somebody who's a higher belt, preferably a black belt, to come in and show you correctly, or at least give you the tools. You know what I'm saying? And that's what this was all about for me. And insane as it is, bro, started seeing the therapist around the time they started making this film because
Yeah.
I knew I was going to need it, man. This
Mm.
this this was rough.
Yeah, and now you're able to help other people. I mean, and music is your music has always been it's something that people have enjoyed. Has been therapeutic for people, therapeutic for you. But now you can help people in a different way. So I probably just never saw that coming, right?
Oh, I never saw any of this coming, and I also didn't realize that my music was giving people that release because
Yeah.
it was just that's all it was for me. It was just me pouring my guts out to the music, which was my blood coming out of my body, just spilling out.
Mhm.
I've always been a musician. This is how I've always expressed myself, since before I can remember. And lo and behold, the anger and the pain that I was putting into my music, which was giving it the sound and the aggressiveness that it had, was helping other people. Who knew that was possible? But I had a lot of people tell me that my music got them through really difficult times. I've had, I mean, Jocko Willink said my music got him through some of the roughest times of his life, and I'm like, whoa, this dude's like, if that isn't a testament to the power of
Mhm.
music, that's like one of the toughest people walking the planet, as far as I know. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and if my music had that kind of impression on him, then damn, I was put here for a reason that's beyond my knowledge, and I'll
Yeah.
take it and I'll run with it. And I'm just trying to recover from my life and working on being a better person as I move forward. I slip, I fall on my ass, but I'm on a path of trying to self improve, and you know, life is
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's
Life's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's beautiful. So yeah, I know people have looked up to you for years and years now, and they look on that stage and make it look like so much fun. And sometimes it is, sometimes
Dude,
it's sometimes it's not. But what kind of advice do you give them when they want to do what you do?
what, like, pursue a career in music?
Yeah, hmm but do
Well,
it do it the right way.
I hate to like take some of the artistic joy out of it,
Yeah.
but you gotta, unfortunately, in the early stages of it, you have to come to certain understandings as a band if you're going to be a band or whatnot. Like, are you going to split up songwriting credit equally? This, that, the other. Basically, what I'm saying is, as soon as you know this is something that you're going to pursue, you should get some kind of legal counsel.
Mhm.
Just to and think of them more as a therapist than legal counsel. Think of them as somebody that's going to give you guys guidelines so that you understand. Excuse me, my throat's a little shot,
Yeah.
so that you understand a little bit about the business that you're about to get into, because that's where a lot of resentment and drama and stuff like that comes from. Because we're
Mhm.
all tainted with ego and with this and that, and we're all tainted. Everybody sees themselves differently than the rest of the world sees them, and everybody thinks they're contributing a hell of a lot more than they really are to the
Yeah.
universe.
Mhm.
And so a lot of complications will arise. You'll have a lot of outside forces, whether it's friends, girlfriends, managers, influencing the individuals. So a lot of things get really High School Musical,
Yeah.
even for like people who start out caring about each other, start out having fun, it can get really stupid. So you really have to
Mhm.
understand the business that you're getting into and just understand, okay, because right away, whoever writes the most songs is going to start getting the most money and this and that. And usually the drummer winds up getting stiffed because he's not getting
Yeah.
songwriting credit. So I'm just saying these are like all typical normal things that have happened
Yeah.
all right. So it creates drama. And if
Mhm.
so you got to understand, like, are you coming in as this is the song I wrote this song, or are you just going to give everybody a certain percentage because you're all putting your individual signatures on the instruments and the parts you're playing, which I think is a little
Mhm.
bit, more fair. I mean, if I
Yeah,
was
of
ever
course.
able to get me personally, and I wrote or at the least co-wrote every CRO-MAGS song. There's not one
Mhm.
that's been written that I didn't write by myself or write most of.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. But if I ever got the rights to those first two albums back, I'd be happy to share the royalties equally if that was
Mhm.
my ability because I feel like everybody contributed just by being a part of that moment you know
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely. And so you'll like this. My co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys. Caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame, and
that's awesome.
yeah, and so we'd love to ask people about their Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career where you just had to go for it. It worked out for you. I'm so curious to know. There's probably so many of them for you.
And there really is. That's like a hard one because I can think of certain concerts that were just like wow,
Mhm.
and certain moments where I was with certain people that were just overwhelming. So that's a rough one. But I gotta say, uh, the other night, m- Father's Day actually
Mhm.
was the premiere of Wired for Chaos, and
Yeah.
it was also sorry, it was also the 10-year anniversary of my mom's passing,
Oh,
and
man.
I was there with my eldest son,
Yeah.
and I'm like watching the story of my life on Father's Day with my oldest son, and me and him, we went through some difficulties when he was younger,
Mhm.
and he's back in my life, and we really love each other,
Yeah.
and to be there on Father's Day with my kid. All my kids weren't there, but with him, he was my elder. He's my eldest, and
Yeah.
to be there with him and seeing the story of my life on the day that my mother left,
Mhm.
and I knew she'd be so proud.
Yeah. Sure would be.
I'm still having, I'm still
Yeah.
wrapping my head around this, man. This was just 2 years
Yeah.
ago. My mind is
Yeah.
my mind is blown. And like I say, this is like a page turner, man. I'm starting from a fresh start right now, man. I'm hitting the road on this movie tour, and I just,
Yes.
bro, the day that the premiere happened, I just flew in from Germany because I just played at some festivals
Mhm.
and some club dates. Like I literally was on stage the night before the premiere in New York,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
was pow, my mom's anniversary, Father's Day. I'm there
Mm.
with my kid. It was just like bam. I'm going to another film tonight with a Q&A, and I'm
Yeah.
doing this thing, and then I'm going back to Europe to finish the second run of
Yeah.
the European tour. Bro, I'm so busy. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted. I'm seeing double, but I'm embracing it. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
you know, if you're seeing double from doing what you love, damn,
Yeah. That's a blessing.
whoa,
That's so cool.
you
So
know.
what do you keep in mind that keeps you on the right path, always and from here
Well,
on
you
out?
know what? It depends what you call the right path. I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend. I'm never going to say I don't drink or I don't smoke or I don't this or that.
Yeah.
I've only drank like 4 or 5 times this year, but I drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other night I had like 4 beers. That was
Hmm.
huge. It
Yeah.
was just after the last show in Europe. I was just like hanging out with some of the guys. For me, it's more about celebrating the moment. It's not
Mm.
about habitual, consumption.
Right.
I still, I smoke weed. I don't care. I'm not going to pretend I don't. I don't think it's good for my cardio, but I also do over an hour of cardio every day. So, like, for
Yes.
whatever I do that may be a little negative, or considered negative by some people, you better believe I do 10 times more of the opposite. I mean, even on days that I don't work out, I do close to 1,000 push-ups a day just because I exercise every day. Every time I catch myself scrolling on my phone, I drop and do 60 push-ups just to stop scrolling on my damn phone,
Good.
And I'll
I
do
love
it on
that.
the street. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see videos of me on tour, and I'm literally working out at gas stations, truck stops,
Mm.
dressing rooms, you know. Maybe that's part of my PTSD. Maybe that's how I deal with it a little bit too. I don't care.
Yeah.
I use it in,
Mm.
in, a, in a positive way, just like my music is a vent for all the shit I went through. And oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if
No,
this.
no, no. You're all good. You're all good.
I forget. I've
Uh,
been doing radio interviews and stuff, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's
sorry.
what creeps me out. Yeah, I'm like, whoop. But life is great, man, and I just try to remember that even on the bad days, man, because
Yeah.
the pendulum swings, man.
Mhm.
And people forget, and people don't know the science. Like
Mm.
when you're up on stage or when you're living the moment, whatever it is that you're peaking out on, your dopamine level goes through the roof, man.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's got to be a crash.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're in your hotel room, you're sitting there by yourself, your ears are ringing, and it can be really depressing and really overwhelming. You miss your family, this and that, especially if you're out on the road night after night and after night. And that is rough, and I understand why a lot of musicians just like succumb to like drug
Mhm.
use and suicide and all these horrible things. But you know what? I know it's really more chemical. It's
Yeah.
just it's the dopamine, it's the cortisol, it's all the things that come. You know, therapy has helped me
Mhm.
by giving me this info.
Yeah, absolutely.
You dig what I'm
And
saying?
and and you could give it to even more people, and that's
You know,
great.
and I've learned how to try to get in front of my explosive temper because I know that that's also my way of. It's kind of like getting my nicotine hit for a
Yeah.
smoker.
Mhm.
Because those neural pathways have been so ingrained into my head that fight or flight mechanism is such a go-to
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
especially now that my life is really good, and so my brain is constantly looking for that,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's I love it. Well, last thing I know that there's so much to get out of this movie besides it being incredibly entertaining and
thank you.
and it just pulls you in. But what are you hoping that people will kind of take away and discuss and think about after this? Because there's a lot going on here.
Well, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
I also want to just point out I had nothing to do with the editing, so it
Yeah.
was really
Yeah.
nerve-wracking because I did not know what it was going to come
Mm.
out like. And my story is nuts. I've done my fair share of horrible things, but I think I've also done a lot of redemptive things, and I think
Yeah.
people will see that in the film, and maybe that'll give them some hope.
Hmm.
And I hope maybe if somebody else is struggling with their life or their situation or things that happened to them in their past, maybe this will give them a little bit of courage or really hope. Sometimes hope is all we have.
Yeah.
There were times when that was literally all I had. And
Hmm.
if you told me that I was going to be where I am now, I would have probably said, yeah, right. Could you spare some change?
Hmm.
And here I am.
Yeah.
So don't ever give up, no matter what's
Yeah.
going on, because you just don't know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I really, really appreciate you, and hopefully we'll get you in the great back in the great state of Texas sometime soon.
And though you know that my family, my grandma
Yeah.
from Amarillo, I got Texas blood in me. So I always
Yeah.
I always feel like part of me always feels at home when I'm anywhere in Texas. It must be my
Yeah.
dad's blood in me.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we hope to get you back here soon. But for now, we're gonna tell everyone to seek out this movie because it's so good, and we really appreciate your time and the incredible words today. And looking forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
My brother, I look forward to seeing you in person next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All
much. We'll
right.
see you again soon. Okay,
Right
bye
on.
bye.
Take
Thank you.
care.